From Salt River Fields at Talking Stick in Scottsdale, Arizona, it's Royals baseball. Today, Kansas City's in town to take on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Pisiak. This is former Royals Hall of Famer Jeff Montgomery. And it seemed like 2 weeks ago, the Royals were looking for productive left-handed bats. And in that time, Dayton Moore has signed Lucas Duda, John Jay, and now Mike Moustakas.
Because you can never have enough productive left-handed batting. We know that. And you get 3 guys who have that type of experience. A great job by Dayton Moore. And we've heard him say numerous times, always looking to improve this ball club. He's done a great job this spring.
Were you as surprised as I was when 2 days ago they signed Mike Moustakas?
Well, I don't think anybody really saw this coming. I think this is an opportunity now to go out and get a guy that you've seen perform. This will be Mike Moustakas' 8th season now with the Kansas City Royals. It's a very club-friendly contract. So all in all, I think it's a great signing.
And this was a guy who last year hit over 270, but more importantly, set the franchise record with 38 home runs. And he was out there until the middle of spring training. We talked to Mike about re-signing with his old ball club.
To have an opportunity to come back to Kansas City and play baseball again, it was a no doubt or a no-brainer for me to be able to come back here and be with a guy that trusts in me and trusts in my ability, and be with a team that I trust in and a training staff that I'm comfortable with, and I believe in everybody in this clubhouse. I believe in everybody in this organization. So it was a very easy decision to be able to come back here and play baseball for this organization.
Monty, how important is that familiarity in that clubhouse?
Well, I think the biggest thing, when you look at a guy like Mike Moustakas, he knows this organization. The organization knows him. And by the way, he looks great in that royal blue. And I think if you look at this team, they can rebuild with a guy like Mike Moustakas playing over at third base on an everyday basis.
Yeah, it'll be great to see number 8 in that starting lineup as well. And he loves the guy at second base, Whit Merrifield, who has been red hot in spring training. It's the Royals and the Diamondbacks. It's coming your way next. back to Salt River Fields at Talking Stick for the Royals and Diamondbacks. Whit Merrifield has been incredibly hot this spring. .520 average, 13 for 25 with 8 extra base hits. But Monty, what makes him so valuable is his versatility.
Right, has the ability to wear a lot of different gloves on the diamond, plays primarily at second base, but we know he can play in the outfield, he can play first base. I think he can probably pitch if you need him to, Fizz, but just a great season for him last year.
Whit Merrifield will be facing one of the top young right-handers for the Arizona Diamondbacks, a guy by the name of Taijuan Walker. And he will be opposed by Royals veteran right-hander Jason Hamill. The Royals and the Diamondbacks coming your way next. Arizona, there's no blazing sun overhead, not too hot, not too cool, just a nice day to watch a baseball game. And we'll take a look at Taijuan Walker, who was a 9-game winner for the Diamondbacks last year after coming over from the Seattle Mariners. And Jeff Montgomery, he is a guy with great stuff. Definitely a top of the rotation candidate. He's going to do outstanding things for this Diamondbacks squad. He's making his 3rd start of the spring. His last start, he was flawless, had an outstanding outing in his last performance. And as we take a look at the lineup, there is Whit Merrifield. He has played 226 major league games, but he said he's absolutely excited to be on the opening day roster for the very first time in his big league career. Well, we saw 2 years ago he made the scene and did nice things, and unfortunately last spring did not work out so well, and he was left here in camp when the big league club broke. So it's a great opportunity for him to get a chance last year to make that appearance. Had the chip on his shoulder. We know what he did during the year. And defensively, of course, Arizona has an outstanding defense, particularly led by their first baseman Paul Goldschmidt, one of the best defenders in the major leagues. And they'll have most of their A-team out there with Marte and Lamb on the left side of the diamond and Peralta in the outfield. Jeff Mathis is a very good signal caller. Well, we've seen him a number of times over the years with various organizations. You're right. He has the ability to put down the right sign, and pitchers love working with him. Our umpires, Jeff Nelson behind home plate, Mark Carlson at first, Chris Guccione at second, and Scott Barry at third base. Well, Taijuan Walker is a big guy, 6'4", 235, and they said early in his career he was mainly a basketball player, but then joined baseball team at the age of 11, fell in love with the sport, and really was a two-sport star in high school in baseball and basketball, and then chose baseball when he was drafted by the Seattle Mariners in the first round in 2010. I also remember watching him in the Futures game in Kansas City in 2012. Here is Paulo Orlando, who's had a great camp.
Yeah, Paulo is the guy that's going to be looking for an opportunity to break camp with this Royals club. We know the roster's changed dramatically over the last couple weeks with some of the additions, but Paulo looking to earn a spot. And
he goes after the first pitch of the game and skies it to right center field. And moving over to make the catch is Steven Souza. And there's quickly one down here in the first inning. Well, here is two-hit Witt. And he's coming up with 2 hits and 3 hits. It seems like every single game. 13 for 25. These were his numbers last year. He just exploded when you talk about power. 19 home runs last year. That was his high in any professional season.
Well, we know that Witt worked on getting very strong with regards to the off-season program 2 years ago. He's continued that, and I look for him to pick up right where he left off last year, a guy that's established himself now as a very solid everyday player at the big league level.
And he surprised even himself by leading the American League in stolen bases with 34. Witt fouls it off at the plate. Walker is coming off a brilliant game against the Cubs on March 4th, his last start. 3 perfect innings and 4 strikeouts.
Yeah, he has dominant type stuff. He's a fastball pitcher, but he's also got a great split to go along with that. He's worked hard on that, and also excellent breaking ball as well.
That ball knocked to right field, but right at Souza, who will make the catch, and very quickly 2 outs here in the first inning. So those are his spring numbers. His first outing gave up 1 run in 1 inning against San Francisco. But you were telling me before the ball game about the humidor effect that they're going to bring to the Phoenix ballpark because his numbers were so dramatically different home road.
Right. His ERA was over a point higher at home due to the dry conditions here. They're going to install a humidor in Chase Field and try to get some better feel for pitchers like Walker on the hill.
Well, the Royals offense not waiting around, swinging early on Walker. 3 flyouts to Steven Souza.
We love getting 11% off.
But this Arizona team, they're pretty popular. They won 93 games last year and fell a little bit short of eclipsing the Los Angeles Dodgers to win that National League West. Here's a look at their starting lineup. David Peralta will lead things off. He'll be followed by A.J. Pollock, and then, of course, the all-star in Paul Goldschmidt. Jake Lamb hit 30 home runs last year. Then Souza, Tomas, Marte, Mathis, Negron. And on the mound for Kansas City is Jason Hamill. That was a career high in starts last year with 32.
The thing that impressed me with Hamill is he didn't get out of the gates very quickly last year, struggled early, but around the middle of May, early part of June, he became probably one of the Royals' most consistent pitchers on a day-in, day-out basis. Was not a guy that was going to probably go out there and threaten a no-hit type stuff on a daily basis, but you pretty much knew you're going to get 6+ innings and 2 or 3 runs out of him. So it was a really nice turnaround for him last year.
And he's facing David Peralta, who has very good power. Spent some time on the disabled list last year. Still hit .293 with 14 home runs. And Peralta takes it right back up the middle for a base hit. Defensively for the Royals, Cam Gallagher will be catching Whit Merrifield at second base, and looks like he'll be playing a lot more there because of the acquisition of John Jay. Lucas Duda is at first base, and Cheslor Cuthbert will also get the start at third. But of course, the Royals announcing today that they have officially signed Mike Moustakas because he passed his physical, signed the contract, and the Royals Public Relations Department wanted us to pass along with the Moose signing. All of a sudden, they're getting more phone calls at our offices, so there are extra people staffing the ticket office for those who are calling or going online to buy tickets for the 2018 season. Love that. That's a really good sign. Nice to see. Fans obviously excited about the fact that you're adding to your ball club. And Ned Yost figured Cheslor Cuthbert would be getting about 550 to 650 at bats this year. Wanted to see him, but he said that number likely would fall to 450. Well, and I think that's just the job of the staff and the organization, to find ways to allow these guys to develop while you still continue to attempt to win on a daily basis. And certainly a lot of bats to go around, and you have to find creative ways to get them, whether it be playing various positions or designated hitter, whatever you have to do, make sure these guys still continue to develop. Because we saw Cuthbert when he played every day in 2016, very productive, hit over 270 with 12 home runs. But as you know, Monty, with so many young players, it's difficult to be a role player. Well, for a young player particularly, someone who doesn't understand what it takes to prepare himself on a daily basis to be a guy that's going to come in off the bench late in the ball game or play every week or 10 days. It's just really difficult to prepare yourself. And I don't care if you're a third baseman or a relief pitcher, whatever it might be, it's different than what you're used to. Peralta gets back in time. We're just underway here in Scottsdale, Arizona. The Royals went 3 up, 3 down in the top half of the first inning, and Peralta reached on a base hit back up the middle. Hamill facing A.J. Pollock. Peralta does not go, and Jason gets a swing and a miss. Count moves to 1 ball and 2 strikes. 2.5 weeks to go, Monty. What are some of the question marks you think the Royals still have before opening day? Well, I think the Royals proved that having a reliable bullpen is an essential element to win at this level. In today's game of baseball, I think you got a lot of bits and pieces out there, but I think refining who's going to be on that roster at the end of the spring training camp will have a big difference on how this team goes, because the bullpen's certainly a very critical element of your club. Hamill gets the strikeout of A.J. Pollock. And what Dayton Moore did in the offseason, he got potentially excellent arms, but those potential has to work out. Right, and that's the whole thing. You want to stockpile with as many quality arms as you possibly can. A lot of guys are unproven. A lot of guys are really uncertain as far as what you're going to get. And when you can eliminate uncertainties from the equation, you have much better chance of being successful. And I think that's one part of spring training. Find out more about what each one of these guys has the ability to do. As an example, Wade Davis, when he was acquired from the Tampa Bay Rays, a lot of people said it was the James Shields trade where they got his leadership, his toughness. But it wasn't until Wade Davis, who was a average to above starter, was moved to the bullpen where he became this brilliant reliever.
Right, and oftentimes opportunity creates a situation where the player becomes better. It brings out the best in that particular player. It may be a change in roles or position, whatever it may be, but when you give that player the opportunity, he takes it, he runs with it. At the end of the day, everybody wins.
Right now, Jason Hamill is a big part of that starting rotation. Danny Duffy looked sharp in his last start, and so did Ian Kennedy.
Yeah, that's a really good sign. I look for Ian Kennedy to have a bounce-back season. We know last year hampered by that hamstring injury, had some issues with regards to the ability to throw his changeup. And he's a guy that, he pitches off his fastball, but he needs to throw his changeup effectively to be successful.
Goldschmidt with a swing and a miss. He is a truly terrific hitter. Hit .297 for the Diamondbacks last year with 36 home runs and drove in 120, and always has a keen eye. He's usually to 80 to 100 walks in a season as well. Two balls and one strike. And then, of course, you're always looking for depth at every position, but more importantly, the pitching staff, and the Royals acquiring Ricky Nolasco, who is a veteran from the Marlins, from the Angels, from the Twins.
You can never have enough arms. Everybody talks about the 5 men who break camp, but normally it's going to take at least 8, oftentimes 10 guys in that rotation in order to have a productive season. And if you're able to get those innings from your rotation, obviously takes such a burden off that bullpen. But I think right now, just looking for guys to go out there, give you a chance every 5th day. And I think with the 5 guys that we just showed on that screen, I like the Royals' chances of staying in ball games. Again, you just want to give your team a chance, and the starting pitcher has so much to do with that.
Goldschmidt even in the count, 2 balls and 2 strikes. And of course, the Royals had to move in that direction after losing Jesse Hahn, and I had seen him earlier in spring training camp, and I thought he was going to be a valuable addition because he's a guy who could both start and relieve.
Right, a good example of why you need that depth. You can't count on just 5 or 6 guys carrying the load during the course of the year, and that's why when spring training opens up, you've got 30 to 40 guys wearing pitchers uniforms, and you just don't know how many you're going to need.
Ball in the dirt, blocked nicely by Cam Gallagher. And if you talk to scouts both inside the organization and outside the organization and ask the question, where is the depth, and they'll say it's at the catching position, players like Cam Gallagher.
Yeah, it was nice to see Cam have his opportunity last year to make his debut and do some special things. I'll never forget the grand slam. That was something special he'll never forget either. But just having guys that you can count on, reliability, and Salvador Perez, as he moves forward in his career, having guys that have the ability to spell him like Drew Butera and Cam Gallagher, certainly a nice situation to have.
Yeah, we've had our first look at Mabris Valoria as well. But Gallagher looks much improved from last year. He did a lot of strength and condition in the offseason. The one thing that the minor league coaches told him was, they said, defensively, you are there. Offensively, what we want to see you do, Cam, is really go to every single at bat with a game plan. What's the pitcher? What does he throw? How does he work you in the past?
And that's just part of really becoming a bona fide major league player, learning ways to improve yourself on a daily basis, and just being around professional guys like Salvador Perez and whatever position you play. Take something from them, learn from those guys on a daily basis, and that's one of the responsibilities of a veteran player. Try to help the younger players move along at maybe an accelerated pace.
He said both Salvador Perez and Drew Butera have been extremely helpful in his growth. Lamb fouls it off. Jake Lamb, 30 home runs last year. Also drove in 105. Young man out of the Pacific Northwest, just 27 years of age. Ooh, he went. Jason has not only an exceptional slider, but a good curveball that he's been working on in camp.
Yeah, and we're going to see the slider here is kind of a back foot slider to the left-handed batter. Very difficult to lay off, especially when you have 2 strikes. Nice job of setting up that pitch.
Yeah, last year he threw the slider 37% of the time. His fastball average is 92. Steven Souza bidding for a backup spot in their outfield play. Big, strong right-handed bat. I told you the Diamondbacks went 93-69. They improved 24 wins from 2016 to 2017 and still finished 11 games back of the Dodgers, who would go on to win the National League. Two on, two out, no score. We're in the first. Hamill a little bit low, and the count goes Steven Souza's way.
And Fitz, you talked about the improvements the Diamondbacks made. I know going into that 2016 season, they'd signed Zach Greinke. They'd really built some depth in their rotation. A lot of expectations for the Diamondbacks team to be competitive, and unfortunately they got off to a slow start. Zach Greinke got off to a slow start, and as a result, the team never really got to where they needed to be, but last year made significant improvements.
Yeah, Greinke a 17-game winner last year. Robbie Ray a 15-game winner. And they were able to get back Patrick Corbin, which really helped. He won 13. And, of course, the acquisition that I thought in the offseason was really smart was getting today's starting pitcher, Taijuan Walker, who we've seen for a couple of years when he was with the Seattle Mariners. Count 2 balls, 2 strikes on Souza. In the dirt, blocked by Cam. Jason, meantime, a very durable pitcher, one of 9 pitchers to make at least 20 starts in each of the last 9 years.
I like the steadiness from Hamill. You pretty much know what you're going to get from him. He's going to take the mound every 5 days and just keep you in ball games. Again, he's not a guy that's likely going to have no-hit stuff on a regular basis, but he's going to go out there and really kind of keep you in the game.
Souza fouls it off. Yeah, you talked about his slow start. It almost seemed like he couldn't find his release point, but once he did, what was it? The last 15 starts of the season, he walked 2 or fewer batters in each of those 15.
Right, the command was the big issue for him early in the season. He's not a guy that works extremely quick. He's not a guy that is going to pound the strike zone frequently, but he was just, something was off coming out of spring training for him, and it just seemed like it took him a while to really kind of get the feeling for that. And I know oftentimes breaking ball pitchers, guys who feature the slider like Hamill, sometimes the warm weather is their best friend.
Souza pops it up, shallow right. Tyler Collins will take care of it, and that does it for Arizona. They lead 2, and we're scoreless going to the second. Make money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by Surprise Arizona and Surprise Stadium, ranked the best spring training facility in the Cactus League by USA Today. Here in Scottsdale, Saguaro cactuses, comfortable temperatures, 70 degrees. And here is Lucas Duda. We had a chance to visit Lucas right before the ball game. Good numbers last year as he split his campaign between the New York Mets and the Tampa Bay Rays. First pitch by Walker is upstairs.
Obviously, Duda, a large man, has the ability to hit 30-plus home runs in really about any ballpark. So we'll see how that plays out in KC.
And he has 3 hits this spring. Interestingly, all 3 hits have been to the opposite field. And he's usually a pull hitter, and Arizona, of course, playing him to pull with 3 infielders on the right side.
I remember a pull hitter, where's number 8 for the Royals, that made a big adjustment and started going the other way and turned his career around. Mike Moustakas.
We just signed him. Boy, he had a solid year. But I remember Dale Swaim, who was the hitting coach, he said, Mike Moustakas manipulates the bat better than any player on the team. And just what you talked about, he would look out there and see where the defense was, and Mike would slash it down the left field line, or if the pitcher made a mistake middle in, he had the hand speed and power to pull it down the line for a home run. Walker's 2-2 is in the dirt. Well, Lucas played in 127 big league games last year. And in his career, he is a .242 hitter with 138 home runs. Down low and in. That's the other thing that he can do. He usually has pretty good on-base percentage, and he walks to lead off the second inning.
Talked about how big he is. He's standing next to Paul Goldschmidt, who's a pretty good sized man himself, and there's a good profile.
Yeah, I think he's 6'4", 256. I shook his hand. I go, I'm not sure if he's playing for the Royals or Chiefs. He's like a defensive end. Strike in there. Tyler Collins, 27 years old, and the Royals staff interested in Tyler because he's their style of player. Plays the game the right way.
Plays hard. He's very athletic.
Intense. I like what he's done a couple of times in spring training, where when the defense was drawn in, or base runner at third base, really shortened up his swing, just try to punch it back up the middle, and got that base hit to bring the runner home. Another time he did it and got the sacrifice fly. Tries to go to left field. Playable for David Peralta, who has an excellent arm, and due to halfway between first and second, retreats. And Michael Saunders is pretty much in the same position as Tyler Collins. He's on the outside looking in with the acquisition of John Jay.
Well, when you bring in a number of guys, obviously creates an enormous amount of competition, 4 slots on that limited roster, but guys like Michael Saunders, who have experience, have got, you know, he's been an all-star. He's done a lot of outstanding things in his career, and both with the Mariners and the Blue Jays. So here's a guy that just looking for chances to go out, get at bats, prove what he can do.
Yeah, 2 years ago he was an all-star and hit 16 of his 24 home runs before the all-star break. But last year, moving to a new league, did not fare well with the Phillies. Traded back to Toronto and wound up hitting .202 for the season. And his story rather interesting because he was in Pittsburgh's camp until they acquired a fine outfielder, and he figured his spot was not going to be very competitive of making the big league club. Asked Pittsburgh for his release, and it was granted that, and the Royals immediately signed him. And therefore a strike and a 2-1 count.
It's been such an unusual offseason with regards to the free agents available, the guys who are still available. There are going to be a lot of really good minor league clubs with guys that are going to sign contracts late in camp that need to get ready for seasons, and they'll end up going to the minor league somewhere and playing to get ready and kind of be available when that call is needed.
Yeah, Monty, I just wrote down a list for our broadcast, and maybe some guys signed today or recently, but offensively, Neil Walker, Jose Bautista, Melky Cabrera, Yunel Escobar. Tell me if these guys have signed. Andre Ethier, Franklin Gutierrez, Mark Reynolds, and on the pitching side, even more. I mean, Jake Arrieta, Alex Cobb, Lance Lynn would be the top 3 starters, and then relievers like Greg Holland, Tyler Clippard, but other starters include Brett Anderson, Joe Blanton, Clay Buchholz, Trevor Cahill, R.A. Dickey, Scott Feldman, Jeremy Hellickson, Valdo Jimenez, and then relievers Trevor Rosenthal and Houston Street. A lot of guys still out in that marketplace.
I would say you put together at least 1, maybe 2 pretty decent big league clubs with that personnel.
Saunders walks. The Royals have 2 on with 1 out. Walker, we told you, was brilliant in his last start, but all of a sudden laboring in the 2nd inning after getting 3 quick outs. The batter will be Cheslor Cuthbert. Well, this would be meeting number 1.
Yeah, it was interesting because we talked about his last start, Walker's last start. He was really flawless. He gave up 1 base runner, was on an error, but he turned a double play and faced a minimum over his 3 innings. But this inning, it just seems like things have kind of gone haywire for him.
That's Mike Butcher, who's with the Angels organization, was their pitching coach, and now the pitching coach for Torey Lovullo here, who is the National League Manager of the Year. And you were touching on Cheslor. What's it like for a young player when, oh man, they just signed Moose? I thought I was going to be the everyday third baseman.
Well, I'm certain that the organization has really made it very clear to Cheslor Cuthbert he's part of the future. We want to see what you have the ability to do, but here's an opportunity to improve our ball club with an all-star, a guy who has our single-season home run record, and Mike Moustakas, and we're going to get you at bats. We're going to get you a chance to play. But it's frustrating when you think, okay, here's another obstacle that I have to overcome. But the guys who, put their tail between their legs and go in the corner and don't respond, those are the guys who never make it. The guys who look at it as more of a challenge, the guys who say, what can I do to make myself better, to help my club win? Those are the guys who eventually get that opportunity, who eventually get the chance to go out and play on a frequent basis, an everyday basis, and they become solid major league players.
And this is Cuthbert, who did not play winter ball this year back home in Nicaragua. And he hits this one a mile high down that left side. Peralta chasing it and will run out of room. But this comes from personal experience for you because you were coming off a really good season, and the Royals signed Mark Davis.
Exactly, and that's just one of the things you have to get over it.
Who was the Cy Young winner.
Right. We had a chance to improve our ball club by doing that.
Where were you, and what was your feeling when that happened?
I was at home as during the offseason, and I kind of thought at first maybe that means I'm getting traded, because before the season ended the previous year, which was 1989, John Wathan had called me into his office and said, hey, fine job this year. We want you to go home, get ready, come back this spring. You're going to be our closer next year. And I was excited about that opportunity. Then in the offseason, I saw where Mark Davis had signed with the Royals, and I thought, well, gosh, maybe that means I'm going somewhere else after putting up good numbers the year before. But Duke called me and said, hey, we want you and Flash Gordon to be in that bullpen. We want you to be one of the best setup guys in the game. And it's a chance to improve the team. So you kind of, you cry a little bit, and you get over it, and you move on and get ready for the season. But that's the whole key, is just don't dwell upon the negative thing. Just focus on what you can do to become a better player.
Walker really struggling with his command. Good block by Jeff Mathis. Just turned his body into a cup. The 2-2. Bert fouls it straight back to the screen, and that's why the game, more than any other sport, I think, is mental. Those moments during spring training or during a regular season, it's a game of failure. How do you handle failure? I was talking to former Royals great Cookie Rojas the other day, and he said in his order it was always the importance: pitching, defense, then speed, then hitting, then how do you handle failure. Cuthbert goes to the opposite field. Well struck, but nice running catch by Steven Souza. Tagging at second, going to third is Duda, and back to first base Michael Saunders.
Well, Chesler put together a very nice at bat right there. Put himself in position to get a pitch to drive. He hits the ball extremely well, but just maybe not quite enough the opposite field.
And now shortstop Ryan Goins. Alcides Escobar was in the original starting lineup, but Goins getting the call with 2 on and 2 out here in the second inning. Cam Gallagher waiting his turn on deck. I thought it was interesting that Cookie would put speed in front of hitting, and he said, I'm talking about the impact that you can make on the game, not just stolen bases, but bunting, going first to third on a single, second or first to home on a double. Those little things that add up over the course of a regular season to help you win games.
I would say that would really pretty much fall right into the description of the 2014-15 Royals. You know, teams that really kind of pushed the envelope. They played very solid defense. Obviously the home run numbers weren't there that we even saw last year, but just putting that formula together like Cookie had described, it can have a huge difference if you're able to stick with that plan.
Yeah, and I thought those teams were teams that not only knew who they were, but knew who they weren't. And it's like the starting staff had this lack of ego, for the best way I can, where the starters just felt somehow give this brilliant bullpen either a tie game or a lead going to the 6th inning, and they did that.
Well, and you could just almost pencil in a W at the end of the day if you had a lead after 6 innings of baseball with that bullpen. And that's why I talked earlier about the importance of finding out what's the right mixer ingredients for that bullpen coming out of spring training this year, because it will have a huge impact on how well this team either does or does not do.
And it was one of those years where the team could take a chance on a Rule 5 guy that has to stay on your roster. 3-1 to Goins, and he smacks it down off of the glove of Goldschmidt. Duda will score, and Goins is safe at first base, and the Royals take a 1-0 lead.
This is pretty much what we've expected from Ryan Goins, from what we've seen from him in his days as a Toronto Blue Jay. A guy's going to make contact, try to make things happen, and sure enough, put the ball in play, and good things can happen.
I like him as a backup guy. I mean, probably got a little overexposed by playing in over 140 games last year for the Blue Jays, but you bring him off the bench, and he's a very solid player, can play both second and shortstop very well. Here's Cam Gallagher. Cam 3 for 6 this spring. He had 250 at the big league level last year, and the one home run Monty talked about, a grand slam in Oakland. He had 292 at AAA. Boy, Walker looked so comfortable in the first inning. Seemed like he threw about 6 pitches in that first inning. Really struggling in the second. He's thrown seems like 25, 28 pitches here in this frame. He walked a couple and gets a strike across.
He's got that mid-90s fastball, which is a great pitch for him, but I think when you look at him, he's got the ability to put hitters away with his breaking ball and a splitter. It just doesn't seem like he has a feel for either one of those 2 off pitches today.
In there, 2 balls and 2 strikes, and Ian Kennedy felt very comfortable with his fastball the other day, and my goodness, that's all he needed with his command of it in the 3 shutout innings.
Well, fastball is always going to be the most important pitch for any pitcher, and it doesn't matter if you throw in the upper 80s or upper 90s. If you have the ability to command your fastball, you can make good things happen.
Gallagher goes right center field, and that ball's going to drop. In comes Michael Saunders, and the Royals take a 2-0 lead, and Gallagher now 4 for 7 this spring.
It looked like a breaking ball that didn't really have good finish, and it just kind of stayed in the middle part of the plate. And when you elevate the pitch, you do the hitter half the work for him, and sure enough, Cam able to get him an RBI.
So the 2 walks that Walker allowed have both scored. Albert Suarez has started to warm up in the Diamondbacks bullpen after Walker really laboring in the second inning, and there is a line drive smashed to the gap left center field. In comes Goins. All the way to third is Gallagher, and it's 3-0 Kansas City. It seems like every time Orlando has been up this spring, he has hit the ball right on the screws.
Well, Paulo going up, being ready to hit, getting those first pitches, and not missing the opportunity to drive in a run.
He now has 11 hits and 24 at bats this spring. With Merrifield, who's been the hottest Royal, he flied out to right field first time up. He stayed with the same workout and diet habit he had going into the 17 season, and it was so solid, why change anything? And hit 288 last year and really became an excellent major league player. Tried to go to the opposite field but got under it. Souza will make the catch, but the Royals score 3 runs off Taijuan Walker in the second inning and take a 3-0 lead for Jason Hamill. Join us for our 50th opening day on Thursday, March 29th, as the Royals host the White Sox. Tickets are available, including limited lower, upper, and outfield locations. To learn more, visit Royals.com/OD. Opening day, nothing like it.
Let's sell them out.
Well, I'm sure we got a few more calls today after the Royals signed Mike Moustakas, who is beloved in Kansas City history, helping us to our second World Championship.
I know one person is going to be very excited. That's a guy that has those big moose antlers. He's got the blue Jeep, and that he drives around with all the moose stuff. He doesn't have to change it now.
No, but the antlers, I understand, are with Kurt Nelson at the Royals Hall of Fame. Ball knocked foul. The Royals were showing some of the highlights the other day on Twitter page of Moose's heroics through the years, and you go, man, oh man, and so many of them came in the playoffs. I'll always remember his first great moment in postseason, and that was at the Big A, Game 1 of the American League Division Series, when he hit that huge home run to give the Royals the lead. And as soon as he hit it, I turned to Steve Stewart in the radio booth and I go, Stu, the Royals just won this game. And he goes, why do you say that? And I go, they ain't scoring on our bullpen.
Well, that was almost a statement, and that kind of carried the Royals, because the Angels, going into that series, they had the best record, I think, in the American League.
In all of baseball, 98 wins, right, and 25 in September.
So it was certainly a turn in the tide.
Pitch runs away. And then, of course, his great defense at third base to take opportunities away from the Mets when they were coming back in the 15 World Series, and that big home run. Jason Hammel. And that is ball 4, so his second walk of the game, and Tomas will be at first base. How did you like to prepare for spring training? And I say that in regards to your meeting with Cal Eldred the other day, how a pitcher looks at spring training when the pitchers and catchers report all the way to the end of opening day, and Monty, coming from a guy who doesn't know if he's going to have the big league club made, to a guy like Jason Hammel who does. There's a base hit to left field by Marte.
Well, a lot of times a guy like a Jason Hammel, or there's maybe a miscue in left field, going to allow the runners to advance.
So an error by Jorge Soler after the base hit by Marte.
You see this ball is going to go out to left, kind of a routine ball, and didn't think anybody was expecting the ball to get through, but sure enough, it gets past Soler. Back to what I was saying with regards to preparation during spring training, a guy like Hammel and guys who are essentially either penciled in or know they're going to be on an opening day roster, they can go about it much differently. And starting pitchers essentially want to try to have this progressive, they want to, each time out, they want to throw more pitches. They want to build themselves up to be ready to go, roughly 100 to 110 or 15 pitches on opening day or whenever the season starts. So it's a little different for everybody, but starting pitchers certainly have to get ready for the workload.
Jeff Mathis with the base hit that drives in 2 as both Tomas and Marte score. So the error hurts. And Hammel looking to get his first out of the second inning.
And Mathis got the pitch he was looking for to drive in 2 runs.
And I read this in your book. I read the book that you and Matt Folks wrote in the offseason, and you were talking about spring training and how a catcher can help you. And in your case, it was Bob Boone earlier in your Kansas City career.
Well, I talked earlier about absorbing from guys who have experience, and I think at the time Bob Boone had caught maybe the most games in Major League history, or for sure was in the top 2 or 3 guys that ever caught in Major League history. So here's a guy that sees what you got. He's your catcher, and if he's telling you something, you have to listen. You have to understand what he's trying to get across to you, because he's done it so many times and worked with so many different players. But if you're able to take what your catcher sees, because he's the one receiving the pitch, he can tell how things are finishing. He knows what your ability to locate various pitches are. And simply Bob Boone told me, forget the inside corner, forget the outside corner. We're going to pitch to the bottom corner of the plate. And that day I became a big league pitcher.
I guess before that you always looked at it like it's inside and outside, but that bottom zone you never thought about because you thought you were catching too much of the plate.
Well, if you keep the ball down, good things going to happen for most pitchers. And I think that was really what I took away from Bob Boone's comment to me was, hey, your stuff's pretty good, your location's pretty good, but you're trying to pitch like your location is great, and your location is not great. But if I give you a target that's on the bottom part of the plate, he goes, you should be able to hit that frequently. And that's what I did. I tried to go out and hit the bottom corner of the strike zone, and end up having one of the best seasons of my career.
That ball lofted to left. Soler tracking it and makes the catch. And back to first base is Jeff Mathis. And I would imagine, Monty, with that approach, you probably had a lot of early count outs and could pitch not only 1 but 2 or even sometimes 3 innings in an appearance.
Yeah, what it would do is allow you to be more pitch efficient. It would allow you to go out and get ahead of counts, and then you're pitching on your terms as opposed to pitching behind in counts, and the hitters are looking for certain pitch, certain location. They do a lot of damage when they know what you're going to throw and where you're going to throw it. But if you're able to be on the attack, get ahead, and I think any pitcher, regardless of your stuff, if you have the ability to get ahead, you're going to have a much higher rate of success just because you're pitching in the situations that the numbers really solidify that work in pitchers' favors if they're pitching ahead in counts.
Back to the top of the order in David Peralta. He singled his first time up on a line back up the middle. Royals scored 3 in the top half of the second, and Arizona has come up with 2 so far. Hamill more of a fly ball pitcher than he is a ground ball pitcher, but with that slider he might be able to get 2 outs on 1 pitch. Outside corner, yes, 2-1. Were there things that bothered you as a player, even now as a broadcaster, a young pitcher, great stuff, that you go, why isn't he doing X?
Yeah, a lot of times you never see players reach their full potential because they try to be somebody who they're not really capable of being. And by that, there's going to be a base hit, looks like.
Just off the top of the glove of Lucas Duda.
But there'll be young players who have tremendous natural ability, but they try to do things they're not capable of doing. And by that, I mean they try to be too fine with their location. They don't trust their stuff enough, and they eventually end up pitching behind in counts, and they end up being in situations where they're not putting themselves in a best position to be successful. And as a result, they never make it through the system, and they never stick in the major leagues. And it's one of the things I always would try to tell young pitchers when they made their debut: do exactly the same thing you did in Omaha or wherever you came here from, because the pitcher's mound's 60 feet 6 inches here, just like it was there.
Now Pollock, who struck out swinging his first time up. Strike 1. Hamill at 41 pitches, and I'm sure the Royals were hoping to see Jason go 3. Pollock to short, cut off by Cuthbert. They get 1, but they will not get the man at first base, and the tying run scores. It's a 3-3 game here in the second.
Because even though these spring training results and numbers are not as important as getting ready for the season, these are oftentimes good situations for pitchers to get into when they have to work out of jams. They have to maybe turn it up a notch and get to that next level to try to find a way. He almost got the ground ball, almost got the double play. Unfortunately, just a little short. But when you create the situation, you make the pitch, and this is a almost an inning double play. Would have felt really good about getting out of that inning. And just things you can't replicate in your side sessions and just throwing in meaningless games. When you get in a situation where you got to make a pitch, it brings out the best.
And during the regular season, the simple A.J. Pollock hustle allows Paul Goldschmidt to come up with men on base rather than lead off the third inning. This is a guy who drove in 120 last year. He's become one of the most consistently productive hitters in the major leagues. Not only the power numbers, but he had 19 stolen bases, 97 walks, 953 OPS over the past 5 seasons. That was his average. Runner goes. Goldschmidt takes a strike, and the ball dropped by Gallagher. It will be a stolen base for AJ.
And one area that Jason Hammel is not extremely well versed in is holding runners on first base. We saw Salvador Perez have difficulty throwing out runners last year with Jason Hammel on the mound. That's basically just a factor of his time to home is too slow, doesn't give his catcher much of a chance. And even though Cam Gallagher didn't handle that cleanly, I don't think he had much chance at second base.
And now Goldschmidt with a 2-2 count. Paul walked his first time up, was left stranded when Hammel struck out Lamb and got Souza to pop to right field. Paul pulls it to the left side. Goins has it and throws him out. That does it. But the Diamondbacks score 3 times and tie the game at 3. Second inning.
Yeah, Royals going to take advantage of Taijuan Walker's inability to throw strikes and set the table, find a way to drive in runs. Paulo Orlando going to hit a ball in the gap for a double. Nice AB by Paulo.
We'll see Albert Suarez, who was selected by the Diamondbacks in the Rule 5 draft. So he has something to prove. Last year in the Giants organization and with San Francisco at the big league level, lost all 3 of his decisions and had an ERA over 5, but has good stuff. 34 strikeouts in almost 32 innings last year. Albert Suarez. And here is Jorge Soler, who flied to right field his first time up and has a 1-1 count. Soler has been either all or nothing. He has 6 hits this spring and 4 of them are home run. But that is in 29 at bats. He is striving for consistency. Really worked hard in the offseason. Tightened up his swing. Off the plate, Maria Torres is the new Kansas City Star beat writer for the Royals. She wrote an excellent article on Soler in spring training, and he said he was very depressed after the 17 season when he hit just 143 in 16 spring training games and then got hurt. Ground ball to deep third, and out at first is Soler.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Tools are certainly there for Jorge Soler. Just I think seeing his advancement during the course of the season will be very important for him and this ball club.
Yeah, he hurt his oblique and had 19 strikeouts, but he worked with a hitting coach in the offseason, Mike Tozar, who's a friend of Pedro Grifol, one of the Royals coaches, and that was the guy who turned around Alonso, who went from 9 home runs to 28, the Oakland A's last year. Now he's the Cleveland first baseman.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Jorge Soler just to be disciplined at the plate. Stay away from the pitchers trying to expand and get him to swing at pitches out of the strike zone.
Now Lucas Duda, who walked and scored his first time up. Suarez misses inside at 92 miles an hour. Well, I was looking down at his history. He has been on the disabled list 7 times in his career. Good stuff, but got to stay healthy. Duda sends it in the air left side, but that will find the seats in foul territory. And one of the weirdest ones was he missed most of the 2011 season after being diagnosed with Lyme disease after being hit by a line drive in spring training. Man, that's nothing going your way.
And he's a big physical presence too. He's got that big pitcher's body. A little surprising to know he's had that many injuries.
28 years of age, out of Venezuela. Duda got jammed and fouled it off of his foot. I think he was the first wow pickup because the Royals looking for productive power. Just production from the left side of the box when you lose Eric Hosmer and Mike Moustakas. And then 2 weeks ago when we signed Duda, I go, wow, that's a good move by Dayton. And then John Jay I thought was excellent. I've heard nothing but great reports on John Jay. And of course getting Moose back was more than icing on the cake. And the second baseman makes a bad throw to first, and Duda is on for the second time on an error by Negron.
Yeah, this team is dramatically different today than what it was when spring training camp opened, with the addition of those 3 left-handed bats and plus Michael Saunders, and the guy vying for one of those slots, another guy. But I think if you look at what it does for this team, it does not block any development. It still allows guys to go out and have opportunities to play and develop at this level, but it also maybe plugs up some holes with those uncertainties, those that lack of experience at certain positions, and gives some guys a chance to go and do what they need to do to be better prepared to then contribute at this level.
Yeah, I talked to Aaron Seeley, who's a scout for the Miami Marlins, and he was talking about John Jay in particular, and he said, I thought that was a fantastic signing by you guys. He is not only a very good defensive player and very good offensive player, but he goes, he is a world-class person. He is like on that scale of 80 being the top if you're as a hitter or a pitcher. He said John Jay is an 80 person.
And that's fairly typical of what we've seen in the Dayton Moore era as far as the signings have been quality individuals as well as excellent baseball players.
Well, the one that comes to mind most is Ben Zobrist when we acquired him in the 15 season.
And we saw Chris Young the other night pitching for the Padres, another good example. 2 guys who were outstanding human beings, but they also helped teams win.
Yeah, I always remember Dayton saying at the end of the 15 season that his pick for most valuable pitcher was Chris Young, even though we had Wade Davis off the charts. But he said Wade Davis could start. He could go long relief. I remember his Game 1 performance in the World Series against the Mets, where he threw 3 shutout innings, and just a quality guy on the team.
Yeah, talking about CY, and that's why when he pitched the other night against the Royals, kind of pulling both ways. You want the Royals to do well, but you also want him to do well and potentially earn a job with the Padres.
I remember talking to Doug Henry, our bullpen coach, and he said when Chris was moved from the pen to the mound, he goes, we missed him dramatically because he was the guy in there talking with the younger pitchers saying, hey, he just threw a slider in this situation. What do you think he should do now? He said he had the pitchers constantly thinking about the game rather than flipping sunflower seeds or whatever. Tyler Collins flied out to left field his last time up. He's 7 for 21 this spring. Royals have Kevin Lennick warming up in their bullpen. And that tells you that Hamill will not go 3 today. He's throwing a lot of pitches. Good off speed. Collins out in front, and Suarez gets the strikeout.
Yeah, it looked like it may have been an off pitch. Couldn't tell for sure. Had good life to it.
So Michael Saunders, he scored the second of the 3 runs in that second inning. All of a sudden, Suarez throwing a lot of breaking balls. Tried to go with the fastball at 92, but missed off the plate.
Because I was talking earlier about starting pitchers maybe preparing a little different than relief pitchers, and a guy like Suarez, maybe he believes in his fastball. Maybe his fastball is where it needs to be, but he understands that he needs to work on that breaking ball, and this is a great opportunity to do it.
In the old days, was it different than now? Because I see more breaking pitches early in spring training games than I did 10, 15 years ago.
Probably a lot different, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that guys come to spring training in much more game-ready shape. They have thrown considerably more. It's a situation where a lot of guys are living in warm weather climates, maybe here in Arizona or in Florida, where they're going to have their training camps, and as a result, they get together as groups, maybe not teammates, but they get together as groups of guys, and they're able to maybe accelerate their throwing programs a little bit. So they come to camp and they don't need that week or 2 weeks to get ready to be able to start throwing the breaking balls or start throwing batting practice. They're ready to go when they get here.
Saunders tried to check his swing, but went well past him. That will do it for Kansas City in the top of the 3rd inning. Kevin Lennick will come on for Kansas City when we Arizona Royals and Diamondbacks are tied at 3, and if you're too busy for 81 Royals home games, well, you can build your own 10-game ticket package with special discounts from single game pricing. Visit Royals.com/10-pack for details. Well, we'll get a look at Kevin Lennick, who pitched in 12 games last year with AAA Omaha and had an excellent 1.88 ERA, and he has very good stuff. I mean, 24 strikeouts and 24 innings at Omaha. He's an interesting story because he was signed by the Royals on June 15th after making 11 appearances for the Windy City Thunderbolts of the Frontier League.
Yeah, he was released, I think, last spring by the Rangers.
Yeah.
And then got to go out and find a way to stay active, stay in baseball, and sure enough, ends up in Omaha last year. Here he is in big league camp.
He hails from Mission Hills, California. Popped that fastball at 92 miles an hour, a 1-1 count. And then he attended the College of the Canyons, Hawaii Pacific University, and Cal State Dominguez Hills. So 3 different schools. He's 26 years old. And does, I would imagine, with his delivery, he'd be tough on right-handers.
Yeah, he's got a lot of body parts flying everywhere in his delivery. Probably one thing that maybe Cal Eldred will try make an effort to do is maybe get him a little more compact and get him a little bit more on line consistently to home plate.
Ball pulled to the right side, and Duda, who will take it himself. And Lamb is out. Steven Souza will be the batter. The Royals really liked what they saw. I talked with one of our scouts last year, and they said, remember the name Kevin Lennick. Good zip on his fastball, late life on it. Strike one. And this is his 4th appearance of the spring today. He has made 3 scoreless outings, including 1 inning last Sunday in Goodyear versus against the Reds. No walks, 1 strikeout this spring. And if he can keep it down, use his defense. You could play that in the big leagues, particularly with the defense the Royals have had the last few seasons.
We'll take a look at Kevin Lennick's delivery here from the windup, and he's talking about how he creates deception. He gets that glove out there, just a lot of distraction to the hitter. A lot like Kevin Aper used to do. Got body parts flying everywhere.
Right center field, Collins backing up near the warning track and makes the catch. And I never could understand how Kevin Apier could throw the ball where he wanted with that delivery, because like you said, all moving parts and they were coming at you. It seemed like it was a difficult delivery to repeat.
They are more difficult to repeat, but players who have been doing that the majority of their careers and lives as pitchers, once they get to a throwing position, if you look at them on a freeze frame, they're essentially in the same position that a more textbook type pitcher would be. But the whole key is being able to repeat that and not get yourself in a bad arm slot, not get yourself in a bad mechanical situation to where you have to do something to cheat to catch up, and then that's when the command goes.
That ball cracked to center field, and making a diving stop as it clipped in front of him. Paul Orlando's throw a bit offline, and that will be a hustle double for Yasmani Tomas. Yeah, you never can tell who's going to stay healthy. I thought Mark Pryor had a beautiful delivery, and he could never stay healthy.
We're going to look at Tomas going to hit the ball. Paulo Orlando not exactly sure whether it's a dive or not dive. He's going to go give it a shot with 2 outs, which is no harm, no foul there. Tomas takes advantage of it and hustles in a second.
Now Lennox to face Marte. Marte singled sharply to left field, and Soler had it glance off of his glove, get behind him. Runners advanced, and Jeff Mathis' single drove in 2. Off-speed pitch for strike 1. Another off-speed pitch, and he goes to the opposite field. Marte will cruise into second base with a double and gives Arizona the lead at 4-3.
Got to credit Marte here. So breaking ball kind of stayed up. He didn't try to do too much, just put wood on it. And unfortunately, for Kevin Lennox and the Royals, found a little turf down the left field line.
So with 2 out, a double, a single.
I'm not sure if that usher's going to be invited back for the next game.
We all make mistakes. Cactus versus cacti.
He's got a 1,000 fielding percentage.
Yes. And here is Jeff Mathis. Last year hit just .215, but the Diamondbacks don't care at all about that. He is one of the top defensive catchers in the game. He's always listed in the top 10 at pitch framing. And there's a nice job by Cam Gallagher trying to get that call from the home plate umpire, Jeff Nelson. Who is the best pitch framer you work with? Booney?
I really like throwing to Mike McFarland.
Yeah, you threw to him more than any other catcher, right?
Yeah, yeah. Mac and I, we just click very well together. There were certain catchers who, for some reason, you just couldn't find any rhythm. Pat Borders, for example, we had Pat Borders come over one season after he played with the Blue Jays, and I just could not get on the same page with him. And his every time that I would pitch, it seemed like things didn't go well if he was behind the plate. And finally, they recognized that, and they would make a catching change when they make a pitching change that I would come in the game.
And with the Royals, I remember talking with Pedro Grifol about this, but he said that was the importance of Drew Butera, because he said, I'll give you an example. Let's say Salvador Perez leads off the 8th inning of a 1-1 game, and we remove him as a pinch runner. We need a excellent defensive catcher to catch the likes of Wade Davis and Greg Holland and Kelvin Herrera, whose pitches really move. And he goes, that's why Drew was so valuable as a backup.
Right. If you have a power arm out there, not all catchers have the ability to catch and frame and do all the things that a good catcher is able to do with those power type arms, where there's a lot of late life. Think of Wade Davis's cutter and Greg Holland's slider, some of those, really difficult guys to handle. But Drew Butera proved that he could do that, and it allowed them the flexibility to make those moves late in games with Salvador Perez.
Now Lennox facing Negron. And for a young pitcher, it's how do you let the bad go and not let a 1-run inning become a big inning. There's a good pitch. 1-1 count.
Yeah, that's part of the maturation process with players, regardless of position, but especially a pitcher in camp with the organization for the first time in big league camp. And you want to impress, and sometimes you maybe try to do a little more than you're capable of, get out of your game, and things can go haywire.
They groan to center field. Paulo is there, makes the catch, and Kevin Lennox does minimize the damage. Diamondbacks score 1 and take a 4-3 lead.
Hey.
And the Royals at 7-6-1. And Monty, this place is packed. We're talking about the berms in both left and right field.
Saw a lot of Kansas City fans in the ballpark, and here see a nice young lady dancing out there. She reminds me of our director Steve Kurtenbach, the way she dances.
Kurtenbach's way better than that. He's been spending much of the offseason watching Frozen and Moana, so he's used to wonderful music that you can dance to. Here's Cheslor Cuthbert, flied out to right field, and he had a terrific at bat. There were 2 on, and he flied out to deep right field after a long duel with Taijuan Walker. He's 6 for 21 this spring. He had a home run earlier this spring on a pitch that Chris Young threw that I thought Chris got it in enough, and the replays show that Cheslor's elbows were flush against his ribs. He still was able to keep his hands inside the baseball and keep it fair.
Yeah, and after he hit that home run, I commented that he looks like he's much bigger and stronger to me this year. It looks like he came to spring training really added some strength, and obviously the home run potential will be a nice opportunity for him.
I said, what did you do in the offseason? He said, well, this is the first time I did not play winter ball. I just kind of worked on the craft myself, got in the weight room. I took extra swings, but I stayed on Corn Island, which is where his family lives, and his dad is a lobster fisherman. There's a line drive to left field. And I said, so you ate very well? And he just had that big smile, and he goes, and I went fishing myself and caught dinner many times. Great guy.
Sounds like a pretty good way to spend the offseason. Pretty good way to swing at a pitch in the middle part of the strike zone too. Get extended and drive it.
Now Ryan Goins. Goins chopped one off of the glove of Paul Goldschmidt at first base his first time up, and it rolled far enough away from Goldschmidt that they had no chance to get the runner at the plate, or Goins, who slid feet first into the bag, and then he would later come around and score on the single by Paulo Orlando. Suarez came on for Taijuan Walker, who gave up 3 runs in 2 innings. Jason Hamill gave up 3 runs in his 2 innings of work. Goins down 0-2. Last year he played in a career high 143 games with the Blue Jays, hit .237. Career bests in home runs, doubles, RBIs. Ball in the dirt. But Ryan also showed that he was a gamer. He led the Blue Jays last year in game-winning RBIs with 10.
He seems like a good fit for this Royals organization. I know it'll likely be a pretty heated battle for the utility infielder slot with Ramon Torres, who did a nice job for the Royals last year, part of that mix, and among
Cuthbert out of options,
and among others. Exactly. So that'll be one of the situations that will evolve throughout the course of spring training camp.
Ryan with a fly ball to center field, and there's out number 1 in that 4th inning. And of course, you have to ask the question, where's Raul Mondesi? Well, right now Raul is down injured and might be out for another week. But if you push him back a little bit and he's behind time, there's no reason for him to start the season at the big league level when he can get experience down at the minor league level and work his way back. Now Cam Gallagher. And Cam with a drive to right field, pretty well struck, but Souza is able to get there and make the catch for out number 2. I'll always remember the conversation Sparky Anderson had with a young player. He told him he was sending him down and that he wasn't going to call him back up, and the kid was rather taken back by it. And Sparky looked at him in the face and said, "You are going to go down to the minor leagues and you're going to tear it up so much that you're going to force me to bring you back. So go down there and tear it up at AAA." And I thought, you know, that's a way to empower a kid when you're telling him bad news. Here's Billy Burns. Paulo went 1 for 2 today with an RBI single, and now Burns pinch hitting for him. Terry Bradshaw, I'm sure, would like to see the same thing Dale Swain wanted to see from Billy Burns, like keep that ball out of the air.
Similar to what Gerard Dyson was able to do to become a solid player at the big league level. Find a way to use your speed.
Well, he chops it. And Burns just barely out at first base. That will do it for the Royals in the 4th. No runs, a hit, man left. 4-3 Arizona.
I'm at risk.
Diamondbacks with the 4-3 lead here in the bottom of the 4th inning, and quality family time just got a lot easier with the Sunday value pack. Enjoy 12 Sunday games, including Family Fun Day Sunday activities for just $108 per seat. Visit Royals.com/Sunday Pack for details. Well, this is a young man I'm really interested in. Last year in the Arizona organization, won 10 games, but Monty, he has pitched in 106 professional games, 101 as a starter. Now he moves to the bullpen.
Yeah, and he's a Rule 5 guy, so he's a guy that is either going to make the club or it's going to go back to the previous organization. So I think he's going to get every opportunity to become a part of this pitching staff. So I really like what I see from him. Not overpowering as far as the radar gun's concerned, but the ball comes out of his hand really well, and it's got great life to it.
Yeah, that ball just kind of exploded on David Peralta, and he kept it down. But he touched 97 the other day, and I thought, you know, moving from the starting rotation to where you're a 1-2 inning guy, you can really let it loose.
And he struck out 111 batters last year, so he can miss bats as well.
With Arizona, and then selected by the Reds in the first round, 5th overall in the Rule 5 draft, and the Royals thought so highly of them, they traded cash to the Reds to acquire that pick. And he's a big guy at 6'5", 230.
There's certain pitchers who just have the ability to have a deceptive motion, and maybe it doesn't even look any different, but they maybe step across their body a little bit, but the ball is very well hidden, and I think Keller may be a guy that kind of falls in that category.
A.J. Pollock is 0 for 2 today, but his last ground out drove in a run. And he hits that to the right side, and it glances off of Witt, and he does not have time to make the play, and that will be an error by the Royals' second baseman.
Another observance for Brad Keller is the fact that he gets the ball and he throws it. He's not out there thinking about what's going to happen. He has confidence in his ability that he's going to deliver his pitch, and here he makes a good pitch, and unfortunately Witt unable to handle it.
This is his 4th appearance of the spring. He's yet to allow a run. 3 2/3 innings now. It's a strike to Paul Goldschmidt. So Keller, who was with the organization, he was in spring camp with Goldschmidt. Now he's facing him. You want to impress your old team. Spent 5 years in the Diamondbacks organization. Fastball clips off the glove of Cam Gallagher.
Ryan Lefevre and I had an opportunity to speak with Cal Eldred, the Royals pitching coach, earlier in the week about Brad Keller, and he said he really likes what the upside is for him, and said he would really like to have the chance to just kind of work him along gradually, really mentor him along. I think that would be a tremendous opportunity if he's able to do that during the course of this year.
And we're expecting to talk to Cal Eldred during our broadcast today, the new pitching coach for Kansas City. Stay with the fastball and knock foul.
That was a good fastball down on the strike zone. Some of his other fastballs have gotten away from him a little bit up in the strike zone, but that one really stayed with it and got down on top of it.
Yeah, we've seen what Paul can do with fastballs middle away that are mistakes. He has tremendous power to the opposite field. There's Cal Eldred. Took a little bit off. And great location. Goldschmidt couldn't do much with it. But you can see where Paul taking a shot at the opposite field. Royals defense shading him to pull. Merrifield almost directly behind second base. Time got it up a bit.
Well, with Goldschmidt at the plate and Jake Lamb, the cleanup hitter, in the on-deck circle, there's an opportunity to see here what Brad Keller can do. And talk about the pitch getting up. I'm not sure if he tried to elevate that pitch with intent or not, but I think with a guy like Goldschmidt, you get the ball up and he hits the ball in the air, it's got a chance to leave the ballpark.
Another 2-2. That time 96 miles an hour. With one out, let's see if they send Pollock. He has good speed. He does go. And the pitch is swung on and missed. No throw by Gallagher. 2 out. And Keller strikes out an all-star.
Very good sign in a fastball count. He's able to throw his breaking ball for a strike and get one of the best hitters in the game out. Very, very nice sign.
So Jake Lamb up. Struck out in the first facing Hamill and grounded out facing Lennox. To the right side. Duda underhands, got him. Nicely done by Brad Keller, getting 2 stars in Goldschmidt and Lamb with a runner in scoring position. With a 4-3 lead over the Royals. We will see a new pitcher in Matt Cook. Last season with AAA Reno, an 8.4 earned run average. He hails from Cherokee, Iowa. I have had a chance to visit that lovely city in the northwest part of the state of Iowa. And did you know, population's only a little over 5,200, but I believe it's the smallest city in the United States to have its own symphony, the Cherokee Symphony.
I did not know that.
Steve Kurtenbach knows that. He hails from Iowa. And so does our new pitching coach, Cal Eldred, who was a Hawkeye. So Matt Cook, he played his college baseball at Louisville. Whit Merrifield will lead things off. He is 0 for 2. 13 hits this spring and 27 times up. Strike in there, 1-1 count.
Cook with a good fastball. He cuts it. He'll run it in, four-seamer as well, but really looking for him to advance with regard to his off pitches, his slider and his curveball and changeup.
And there's a drive to right center field. It will drop. A base hit for Witt, number 14 this spring.
I think we'll just call him Ike and hit Witt because he can hit. Spring number's outrageous.
And that's 3 times today he has gone to the opposite field. What everybody wowed about was his power last year with 19 home runs. Previously, he had only 37 total in almost 2,800 professional at bats. Now Soler with a big swing on a fastball. Strike 1.
If there's one thing about the Merrifield power, I think the positive from that is even though he's gotten bigger and stronger, still has a speed like you talked about earlier, led the American League in stolen bases. So I think that's one thing that you have to be happy with Witt, is he's still able to play that type of game as well.
Soler fouls it out of play, now down in the count 0-2. Ramon Torres pinch running for Witt at first base. And this is where Cook might expand that strike zone with an 0-2 count on Soler. Got a breaking ball in the air, and I think Jorge mad at himself because it caught a lot of the plate, but it flies out to right field for the first out of the 5th inning. Well, fans, Sunday, Kevin Harvick looks to make it 3 in a row as NASCAR heads to Phoenix for the 2nd race of the NASCAR Goes West Series. Catch all of the action Sunday starting at 2 o'clock on Fox or stream it live on Fox Sports Go.
And that's right down the road from us here in Phoenix tomorrow afternoon.
Boy, they love their auto racing here in the state of Arizona. Lucas Duda up for the 3rd time. He's been on twice on a walk and an error. Takes ball 1. Duda's best season was probably 2014 with the Mets, and he hit .253 and hit 30 home runs. Tied that number last year in there. And that year he drove in 92. Boy, would the Royals take that. Pulls it to the right side to Goldschmidt, who goes to second for 1, back to first, and that's an inning-ending double play. Bottom 5 we go in Scottsdale. Diamondbacks by 1. Steve Physioc, Jeff Montgomery. Now we're joined by second baseman Whit Merrifield. And Whit, another hit today, 1 for 3 on the day, and 14 for 28 this spring. What did you do to prepare yourself to have this hot start?
I mean, nothing any different than any other offseason. You know, coming in and trying to get my timing good, see where I'm at, seeing the ball, making sure my swing's on time, and trying to find barrels early on. So I guess this year, you know, I got a little more, I'm not so pressed about results. I'm more concerned about where my swing's at and getting ready for the season.
And Wood, I think that's a good point. I remember those years when you're trying to make a club, you press, you try to do things maybe a little bit more than you have the capabilities of doing. Maybe last year that was the case with you. Didn't make the club, but here's an opportunity now. You know you're going to be on a roster. You know you're going to be on an opening day roster for the first time. It has to be exciting and maybe a little bit more relaxing getting ready for the season.
Yeah, no question. Make that play. Oh, nice. Yeah, it's nice to come out here and start and you know you're going to get your 2 or 3 at bats and be able to see some pitches, and as opposed to coming off the bench, you know, in the 6th or 7th inning, whatever it is, and you might only get 1 at bat, so you got to be ready from the get-go. So it's definitely a nicer way to go about camp, but at the same time, a little more focused, knowing March 29th is coming up, and I better be ready.
And we talked earlier about the difficulty for a younger player. We're using Chesler Cuthbert as an example to try to get, you know, your at-bats and try to perform when you're not out there every day. How tough would that be during a regular season, especially?
It's always easier when you're playing every day and you get a rhythm. Your timing becomes better. Obviously, the more reps you get in anything, the better you're going to be at it. So, not being an everyday guy is super challenging. That's why they say those guys in the National League that come in off the bench, you know, the big bopper lefty or righty that comes in for one purpose and to hit a home run. That's one of the toughest jobs in all of baseball. So yeah, obviously, whenever you get to play every day and you get your reps, the game's going to come a little easier.
Arizona right now leading by 1, and Brad Keller pumping strike after strike to Tomas as the count is 1 ball and 2 strikes. You are such a versatile player, and you've been that way throughout your career. I remember your dad telling me when he had you on his travel ball team, I think the first position you played was catcher, and then of course you moved to the infield and moved to the outfield, and we're showing the numbers of how many different positions you played. But would it be more comfortable for you to just play one position, not only for you but for your pitching staff?
You know, speaking on a personal level, like anybody else, I think, you know, the more you get solidified at one position, the better you're going to become at that position. But I've bounced around my whole life, so there's probably a comfort level in me that's, you know, a little greater than other guys that don't usually do it or haven't done it before in the past. So being at one spot's gonna help me at that spot, but at the same time, I'm so used to moving around on the diamond that it might come a little easier for me at this stage in my career than a lot of other guys.
There's a ground ball to the left side, and Goins gets the first 2 outs of this inning. Yeah, there's a funny story you told me, Whit, in the last year, and it was your first year at South Carolina, and weren't you all defense conference in center field, and then the coach calls you and says he wants to move you to another spot, and you said, you finished the rest of the story.
Yeah, I was
who they recruited?
It was my sophomore year. We had Jackie Bradley in right field my whole sophomore year, and I was a center fielder the entire year. And end of the season, they come out with the the conference accolades, and I was the all defensive center fielder. And that offseason, coach called me in and said, "Hey, you know, we need a little more offense in the infield. We're going to move you into second and third, and then when you're not there, you're going to go out and play right, and maybe spill Jackie in center every once in a while." But I was like, man, what else do I need to do to solidify a spot? But, you know, that might have been a blessing in disguise. And, you know, I got my reps in college there. I kind of showed scouts I could move around. And now I'm a big league second baseman, which probably would have blown my college coach's mind if you'd have told him that when I was in college.
Whit, before we let you go here with 2 outs, I got ask you, what was the excitement level of this ball club when you learned that Mike Moustakas is going to be a Royal again?
Yeah, it was exciting. Obviously, Moose he's got some kind of legacy here, and he's done amazing things with Kansas City, and he's a great player, and obviously he's going to make our lineup better. So we're excited to have him back, and I got to see him today. He looks good. He looks really good. He's you know, maybe he's got a little more dad strength now with 2 kids, and he'll put up 40+ homers this year. So we'll see what happens, but we're excited to have Moose back for sure.
Now Keller, after he got 2 ground ball outs, almost had the.
This guy's nasty, by the way.
You know what? I wanted to ask you about Brad Keller because he's one of the 2 Rule 5 guys, and we've been very impressed. And your thoughts playing behind him?
Well, when guys get on second, they go, "Who is this guy?" He's throwing, you know, mid to upper 90s with balls cutting, and then every once in a while he'll sink on us. And I say that, and he gets, you know, guy hits a line drive to left. But no, he's been really impressive, and yeah, we'll see what happens with him.
It seems like he's got great deception too, so I can see why with the velocity plus the life and just the inability to pick it up, it seems like he's going to be a tough guy to get a chance to square up.
Yeah, no question. It looks nasty for second base, that's for sure.
You worked so well with Dale Swaim last year as the hitting coach. Tell me your thoughts on Terry Bradshaw. I'm sure a guy you know through the minor league system.
Yeah, T was my hitting coach in AA, and then he became the hitting coordinator later on, and worked with him quite a bit. He's a great guy, you know, knows his hitting, and he's been fun to work with so far, and I'm looking forward to a good season with him. I think he's going to do great things. He's real passionate about his players and his job, and you know, I'm excited about working with him.
And now Brad Keller facing Christopher Negron. Negron is 0 for 2 today, but 2 on with 2 out. Let's see if Keller can bear down and get Negron for the final out of this 5th inning. We're talking with Royals second baseman Whit Merrifield, who is giving us our color commentary here from the dugout. Ooh, swing and a miss. Boy, he does have good stuff.
Yeah, that's whenever you get a little hanger and someone swings and misses, something's going right for you.
So Keller has him down 0-2. A little bit upstairs. And Whit, could you tell us a little bit about the other Rule 5 guy the Royals were able to acquire, Bert Smith, who has a fastball that approaches 100 miles an hour?
Yeah, Bert's been nasty too. These guys, a lot of these new faces coming in and just pumping jet out there. It's been fun to watch. You know, you don't see a whole lot of them early on in camp, and then you know, you only get to see them if you're playing. And then so sometimes, like, I think today was my first day seeing Lennox pitch. So you see these faces around the clubhouse, and you don't really know much about them except their pitchers. And obviously, Bert's got the nice flow going on. But I watched him. But I think it was about a week ago, first time I saw him pitch, and he was bringing it too. So some exciting young arms here, and you know, hopefully they'll transition into the season and be really successful for us.
Yeah, Whit, I think that's one thing that we've kind of grown accustomed over the last several years with Dayton and his crew, bringing in arms, solid arms, and whether it be through a Rule 5 guy that you give an opportunity, and more of an opportunity now that this team's in the stage that it is. But you know, when you have quality arms, good things can happen. We saw it happen, you know, during the championship runs where those guys turned into outstanding performers.
Keller caught too much of the plate, and Negron drives one in the alley. They will score 1, and they're going to send a second runner home to the plate, and he too will score. So Arizona goes in front by 3.
I knew I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just waited until he got his 3rd out and then complimented him. That's how it goes.
Well, this is his 2nd inning work, and he too is working on it. He was a starting pitcher.
That's on me.
That's on you.
That's on me.
Well, these runs will be unearned because the error with 2 out, charged to second baseman Torres, allowed the inning to continue, and Jeff Mathis singled, and now Negron doubles.
Some bad dirt over there at second right now. Some bad dirt.
Exactly.
Got 2 errors in the last 2 innings. It's not.
And there's a ground ball back up the middle. So Whit, we will let you go, brother, so we can get this last out.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Go on up to that clubhouse, take a shower, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
All right, guys, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Whit.
It's Whit Merrifield, Royals second baseman, who had a terrific year last year and has had a sensational spring, going 14 for 28, 1 for 3 today. So Peralta with his third hit. And Ned Yost looks like he's going to make a pitching change. And usually a reliever in the past, Keller has not gone 2 innings yet. And the Royals tried to stretch him out. He was able to work very well in the 4th inning. It got the first 2 outs on ground outs in the 5th, but 3 unearned runs in this inning. We'll be right back. Very well, but did not finish well. An error by Ramon Torres cost him, and 3 unearned runs would follow. But boy, he looked sharp. Mid-90s fastball, good location. When he tired, he got the ball up, made some mistakes, and Mathis, Negron, and Peralta got him. Now he is out. And right-hander Heath Fillmyer takes over. Young man the Royals picked up from the Oakland organization in a trade on January 29th.
You had a chance to watch Heath Fillmyer pitch earlier in the week, and here's another guy that's just adding to that stockpile of quality arms that Dayton Moore is looking to provide Ned Yost with during the course of this year.
Jack Reinheimer, the new pinch runner at first base for Peralta. And A.J. Pollock, the batter. Fillmyer's first pitch in there, strike 1. That is his key. He hails from the state of New Jersey, went to Florence High School, and then attended Mercer County Community College, and was drafted, even though he only threw 10 innings, was drafted by the Colorado Rockies in the 28th round. He was mainly an infielder at Mercer. And here's a swing and a fly ball struck to the right side. This should end it. Tyler Collins there makes the catch. 3-run score. It's 7-3 Arizona. Diamondbacks with a 7-3 lead over the Royals here in the top of the 6th inning. Matt Cook stays in the ball game, the 6'3" right-hander from Cherokee, Iowa. And the Royals will lead things off with Tyler Collins.
Socrates Burrito. Getting off for the Royals. White fielder, Trevor John.
Collins has flied out and struck out. Cook's first pitch is taken for strike 1. Kansas City played a split squad game yesterday. They lost to Arizona 7-2 back in Surprise. And then they also lost 6-4 to the Dodgers. But there were some good moments in both games, like Ian Kennedy's 3 scoreless innings, 2 strikeouts. Willie Peralta had 5 strikeouts in 2 innings. John Jay played in his first game and had a hit. Meantime, here the count is 1-2. Much is expected from Arizona this year after winning 93 games in the offseason. And Collins trying to go the opposite way, flips it foul. They did lose J.D. Martinez, and he was absolutely sensational down the stretch. And he signed, of course, with the Boston Red Sox. That will hurt.
Yeah, Martinez did exactly for this Diamondbacks squad is what they needed him to do last year in the second half after getting him from the Tigers. But their organization feels very comfortable moving forward without him.
Well, fans, you can get the exclusive Salvador Perez bobblehead with the purchase of any season ticket purchase. Visit Royals.com/STM for details. And that Salvi bobblehead is so popular. So you'll need it in your trophy room. Martinez, though, had 29 home runs in only 62 games for the Diamondbacks. Saunders swings and misses, and Cook has been pretty good in his inning and a third, but 93 wins last year, averaged over 5 runs per game, 220 home runs. That was 5th most in the National. Saunders misses. Cook's pretty good.
Very impressive for the Diamondbacks, too, when you're in division with the Dodgers, and they were like a runaway freight train. I mean, no one was going to catch the Dodgers, the baseball they played. I remember we went in to play the Dodgers mid-season, 2 of the hottest teams in baseball, and I don't know if we had much of a fighting chance in any of those games. They were so good.
You know, I do remember it was tied late and thinking we would beat the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, but they kept coming back and won that final game. Saunders sends it out of play. So they've got Greinke, Ray, Walker, Corbin, and Zach Godley, an 8-game winner last year, who they really like his future. And then sometime this season, they're going to get back Shelby Miller, who finishes last year on the disabled list and trying to get healthy right now, and they're taking time on him.
Yeah, I just read where Shelby Miller is going to be throwing a bullpen here in the very near future, so I'm sure they'll want to get him back on track as soon as possible.
And of course, that bullpen with Brad Boxberger acquired from Tampa Bay, he could be their closer. Ground ball first and 2 out. And the one guy they moved from the rotation to the pen that worked out beautifully was Archie Bradley, one of their top picks, and he was a starter, but he wowed him out of the pen.
Well, I've seen it happen a couple times on Royals uniforms. Wade Davis is one we talked about, that just guys who you have big expectations for in your rotation, and it doesn't work out sometimes. You put them in the different role out in the bullpen, and they just emerge and become a dominant.
That ball clips off the glove, and Arizona going with pretty much an entirely new defense. Welker's now their first baseman. Cribbs is their shortstop. High fly ball to left. Left fielder Flores stumbles at the warning track but makes the catch, and that will do it for Kansas City in the 6th. 7-3 Diamondbacks.
How you doing today?
I pity you today.
Brought to you by the Missouri Lottery. Every ticket played gives back to Missouri schools, so play it forward with the Missouri Lottery. And by Shelter Insurance for the auto, home, and life. We're your shield. We're your shelter. Beautiful Arizona. That is Sedona, about a couple of hours north of us. Love to hike those hills. And Kelvin Herrera will come out of the bullpen for Kansas City. Pitched in 64 games last year. Monty, how do you see Kelvin? Because the Royals have had the great closers in Holland and Wade Davis, and Kelvin had some success in that role last year, but also struggled a bit in that role.
Yeah, he did. He wasn't as consistent as you need your closer to be. He did work himself through some situations, but I think what I saw a little bit from Kelvin Herrera last year was he got away from really who he is. By that I mean threw a lot more breaking balls than what we've seen him throwing in the past, and when you're in that role, I think you're just really identifying what it is that's going to make you successful, and don't try to deviate too far from that. And we know he's got a great fastball, he's got a great changeup, and he incorporated that slider a couple of years ago, and it was an excellent pitch at times for him. But I think you just have to be careful in the situation you throw it in. You don't want to get beat as a closer on your third best pitch, and I think that's just something we saw Kelvin do a few times last year.
Well, he has immediately gotten ahead of Christian Walker, 0-2. And they tried that breaking ball that missed away. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
This is a fine time to use that breaking ball. Work on it, make it better, get to the point where you're more consistent with it, where you have the ability to pinpoint it and locate it exactly where you need it to be. But I think when you get in crunch time in a big league game in the middle of the season, you want to go with your bread and butter.
He hung that slider and it was hooked foul.
But in that role, confidence is such an important ingredient to have. And when you falter a little bit, and Kelvin had his struggles some early in the season, it's really difficult to put it behind you, especially your first season as a closer, for example. You want to find a way to get back on track. And, it's the confidence factor is something you have to do that.
He got that fastball in on the hands and popping it up. The Royals first baseman Ryan O'Hearn. Was there a time in your young career where you struggled with your confidence?
Well, frequently, until you really get your mindset to the point where you understand that yesterday doesn't mean anything anymore. You have to understand that you're performing today in the moment, and you have to find the ability to forget about yesterday. You could have had a 2-inning, 6-strikeout game yesterday, but it's not going to help you out there today. And you could have given up 3 runs in the inning and lost the game yesterday. It's not going to hurt you today. But certain players, for some reason, have the ability better than others to forget about yesterday. And I remember Dan Quisenberry told me very early on in my career that one of the most important elements or assets for a relief pitcher to have is a short memory, and put it behind you when you have good games or bad games. You can build on the good, but don't dwell upon it. And same with when you have a tough game, don't dwell upon that.
And that was a quality that both Wade Davis and Greg Holland had. Obviously, they didn't blow many saves, but when they did, I was always amazed at how quickly they were able to turn the page. That is part of the game. Jeremy Hazelbaker, the batter, batting for the first time. He had some good years with the St. Louis Cardinals organization. O'Hearn will take care of the first 2 Diamondbacks here in the bottom of the 6th inning.
I'll make a broad statement, and I'm going to use Kelvin Herrera as an example, but if Kelvin Herrera could get in the batter's box and have the opportunity to bat against himself, it would grow his confidence enormously, because he would see how difficult it is to hit a 98 to 100 mile an hour fastball when also he can throw an 88 mile an hour slide or changeup, and just the offset between those 2 pitches. But I always felt like having the opportunity to hit against a big league pitcher would do a lot for big league pitchers' confidence.
And sometimes there are guys you just can't get out. I remember your story. You were working with Mike McFarland, who you work with a lot, and John Olerud just wore you out. And what did Mac call?
Well, we were in the dugout between the 8th and 9th inning. He said, "How do you want to approach Olerud?" I said, I really don't know. I can't get this guy out. He said, "Let's try a knuckleball." So we throw a knuckleball and locked him up, froze him. Took strike 3.
Where did you come up with a knuckleball?
Well, I had a knuckleball that I'd thrown all the way back since my little league days, but I just had never thrown it in a game. I just kind of played around with it a little bit. So we did it, and I think we surprised Olerud so much with a knuckleball, he just froze. So
did you ever throw another one?
I don't think so.
Well, here is Kelvin Herrera. We're not expecting to see him throw a knuckleball. Nope. He just reared back and brought it at 96. He's trying to go 1-2-3 with the Snakes here in the 6th inning, facing one of my favorite names, Socrates Brito, Greek philosopher. In there. Think about that one for a little while.
95 on the black. That'll do it every time.
So Herrera sharp in his 1 inning of work. Diamondbacks with a 7-3 lead over Kansas City. We head to the 7th inning of play, and tonight Sporting KC visits the Chicago Fire. Coverage begins at 4:30. The match will air on both Fox Sports Kansas City and Fox Sports Plus, and is also streaming on Fox Sports Go. For channel numbers, check foxsportskansascity.com. And we'd like to welcome in Cal Eldred, new pitching coach for the Royals. Cal, good to have you with us. You're an Iowa Hawkeye. We're all proud of that, coming from the Midwest. But I wanted to ask you what it's been like, your first spring training as pitching coach with the Royals.
Well, it's been a learning experience. I've done a lot of different things in the game of baseball, but being a true pitching coach is not one of them. I've taught coaches, so I'm learning on the run. But I'll tell you what, the guys in this organization, speaking for the pitchers, have been fantastic. So as much as I think maybe our staff has helped them, they've helped me a lot.
Yeah, and Cal, talk a little bit more about that, because new pitching coaches oftentimes have to learn their staff. You're having to learn a new position as well as a staff. So a little bit of a, I guess, a more complex situation for you going into this.
Yeah, it is a little bit different, but I mean, it's something that when you're around the game, and you know that, I mean, with the different details that have to be done. I think I'm not a huge fan of paperwork, but there's a lot of that. I'd rather be in the bullpen and have games going on like this. But what's been great, I mean, a prime example is Jason Hamill in that second inning realized he's pushing through a lot of his two-seamers and realized that he needs to shorten his stride. That's something that he shared with me once he got in from the dugout, because he's saying, I'm pushing through him. What do you do? And he tells me I got to shorten my stride. And sometimes you think you see that, and then when the player tells you that, now I know that's a key that we've got to use with Jason.
Well, it's very interesting, because we talked earlier about Jason last year struggled a little bit with this command, but he really turned things into a consistent season, really from the kind of the middle end of May throughout. So I'm sure learning things like that at this stage of spring training have to be a big benefit for both you and for him. Yeah,
no question. And you got, you sat in the dugout before. It's hard to always tell what is a slider, what's a changeup, which one. But Kelvin comes out, and we talked about, he's like, look, I know what guys are sitting on, and you understand what their thought process is when that happens. So there's a lot to learn here. I'm not going to fool anybody. There's a lot of pitchers to learn. Plus, you guys know, you've seen our roster. We've got a lot of guys that have come in from other organizations that have really good arms. You saw Phil Meyer, you saw Keller. These guys have really good arms, and so all of us are learning those guys.
And Cal, I was talking last inning with Kelvin Herrera on the mound about how beneficial for a pitcher it would be if he could stand in a batter's box on a regular basis and face himself and just understand how difficult it is. How important is confidence in what would that do for a guy?
Well, I think number one, Kelvin, last year feels like, look, my pitches weren't where they wanted to be. But if you're exactly right. If he could go face himself, he'd understand how nasty they really are. And I think his changeup's been better this spring. But we just had Trevor Oakes, another guy that's come over from the Dodgers organization, and I was saying the same exact thing to him throwing a bullpen today. And what helps though is he's got a lot of great teammates. The catchers can tell you, but when hitters stand in and they tell him that, they really believe that. They don't just want to hear it from a coach.
Yeah, Kel, when did you know that you were ready for this job? Because 14 years you pitched in the big leagues, then you worked in both the St. Louis and our Royals organization. When was there a time where you said, you know what, I would like to try it as a pitching coach? And when you had that conversation with Dayton?
Well, I probably thought that a couple years after I was done playing. I thought that was being a pitching coach is something that I'd like to do. But guys, I have 5 children, and they were young at the time. That's just the honest to goodness truth. And I wanted to stay in the game some way, somehow. I was able to do that in the St. Louis organization, and then coming over here to Kansas City the last couple years. I've had great pitching coaches myself, people over here that I learned from. And so once this opportunity presented itself, I was going to jump all over it. It's something I really thought about for a long time.
What is the biggest challenge for a pitching coach working with young pitchers? And a lot of times, as you talked about, guys you haven't seen before, the Brad Kellers, the Birch Smiths, the Trevor Oakes.
Well, I think these guys, a lot of times, they need somebody that's going to believe in them. And they're going, okay, my stuff works at AA. does it work in the big leagues? It works in AAA. Does it work in the big leagues? Yes, it does. It needs some little tweaks maybe here and then, here and there, but it does work. So they need somebody to believe in them. And then the other thing is, I think a lot of times kids today, I call them kids. These guys are, grown men. But I think they underestimate how good their stuff is, but they overestimate the command of it. And so they might be trying to pitch to corners when, man, we gotta pick out a lot of that white, get over the top of it, get ahead in the count, and then we can work from there.
Right now, Billy Burns getting underneath the baseball, trying to flip it to right. It's going to drop, and holding at second base is the Royals pinch runner. And Cal, was there a time growing up, a pitching coaches, I should say, that you worked with where you said, you know what, I never looked at it that way before? Can you talk about the guys who made an impact in your life as a pitcher?
Yeah, I mean, I can go all the way back to high school, and the first guy that made an impact was my older brother. My older brother Craig. He was a pitcher. I wanted to be a catcher, and he could throw hard. He had a heavy ball, a lot like Brad Keller, but he was somebody that pushed me a lot. And then my high school coach, Scott Broghammer, was somebody that admitted, I don't know much about pitching, but we need to make sure you have good mechanics. And so he sought out a guy by the name of Mike Boddicker that you guys know was a Royal. And then once again, there was guys like Bus Campbell and Dave Duncan. Those are guys that really helped me out a lot.
They are outstanding people. Cal, double play. We'd love to have you talk more, but I know you want to watch your pitcher in the mound, so thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
That's Cal L.
Spring is coming. Enjoy the season with a great
In Scottsdale, Arizona, the Diamondbacks with a 7-3 lead. And here we head to the bottom of the seventh inning. Brandon Maurer comes out of the Royals bullpen, trying to improve on a rough campaign last year with San Diego and Kansas City. Although he was the closer for the Padres, terrific stuff. And if he can command it, he can have excellent success. And this is a guy, had they not turned the double play in that last inning, Monty, I wanted to ask Cal about Brandon Maurer because he does have excellent stuff.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think if he's able to consistently pitch in that strike zone with his stuff, he doesn't have to be too fine. And heard Kyle Eldred talk a little bit like what I was talking earlier about some of his pitchers come in, they think they got to be too fine. Yeah. Maybe they get in those hitters counts. And I think similar here with Brandon Maurer last year, from what I saw from him, he would put himself in the situation where he's got to pitch to too much of the plate, and as a result was not as effective as he has a likelihood to be.
Well, he might be in that same situation where you talked about Bob Boone saying just pitch to the lower quadrant, lower plane of that strike zone.
Yeah, just expand the width of that plate. I mean, use that 17, 19, 20 inches you have to work with instead of just focusing on 2 or 3 inches on the inside or outside.
Cesar Puello lines to center field, and it is caught by Billy Burns for the first out. It's a hard game, you know. My gosh. I've been broadcasting it for some 4 decades, and every spring training it just seems like the game is harder and harder to.
Well, it's not very hard from up here.
Oh no, not up here. I remember I'm working with Sparky Anderson. It was his first time he went from the field as a manager to the booth, and I'm the Angels broadcaster, so Sparky was up here, and he looked down at the field and he goes, "Oh my gosh, look at all that green out there. How did I hit 216?"
I think the first person I ever heard mention the dirt rule was George Brett. He said the closer you are to the dirt, the more difficult it is.
There's a pitch that wanders outside. Did he get the call? Yes, he did. That ball clips in the dirt. The other line I caught from your book that George Brett commented on, I thought was very interesting, and it tells you a lot about George. In pressure situations, he was so cool, and his line was, "Yeah, I got butterflies, but I got them to all fly in the right formation." And that's typical Brett.
Some people have the ability to do that.
Well, there is a walk. And Flores is on with 1 out. And Josh Tolle will be batting for Jeff Mathis. Jeff Mathis had a terrific game with a pair of hits, 2 runs scored, 2 RBIs, and a walk. Tolle has bounced around baseball now with the Arizona organization, fighting for a backup spot.
For our audience who's watching Tolle kind of dry that bat off under his sleeve, it just rained here very quickly, so everything got a little dose of rain.
Up the middle. Shortstop bobbles. Only play is going to be first. They get the out there, but the runner will advance. Goins just bobbled it a little bit, or excuse me, Lopez has moved over there. It is Jack Lopez. Nicky Lopez wears 47, Jack 48.
I thought there might be a chance for a double play, but unfortunately not. Still got to get one for sure. Take the out when you can get it.
Now Ildemar Vargas. At one time the Royals had a 3-0 lead, but that was short-lived as the Diamondbacks scored 3 in the second, 1 in the third, and 3 more in the 5th inning. The last 3 were unearned. In the air, right center field. Burns calls off the right fielder Hunter Dozier, makes the catch, and that will do it. A shutout inning for Brandon Maurer. head to the 8th inning in Scottsdale, and this copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Royals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Kansas City Royals. A little chilly, and actually we had some rain falling the last couple of innings. Time to walk on your tiptoes to keep your heels dry. They came prepared.
Yeah, not many days in spring training in Arizona you can go without the sunscreen. Today's one of them.
Yeah. I mean, it was 85 degrees. Beautiful yesterday. Donnie DeWeese will lead things off. He's acquired before spring training last year from the Chicago Cubs in the deal that sent Alec Mills, a right-handed pitcher, to the Cubs organization. Hit .272 at Double-A. Good speed. T.J. McFarland brings the pitch, and Donnie rips it down the right field line, and that will be at least 2. It bangs against the railing, and DeWeese will have to hold at second base. If that gets down to the corner, DeWeese may have gone to third.
Nice piece of work off the lefty McFarland for Luis, the lefty, to stay with it and get it down the right field line.
And now Ryan O'Hearn. Ryan's had a good camp, going 6 for 17 with a home run, and that came to the opposite field. Well struck left center field.
This young man, I think, has a really bright future. Ryan O'Hearn, probably a year or two away, but has the tools to be a legitimate power guy, first baseman.
And he takes a strike, and the count now evens at 1 ball and 1 strike. Ryan split his time in both Omaha and Northwest Arkansas last year. Had 27 doubles and 22 home runs. Three infielders on the right side, one lone man, the third baseman on the left. It seems like when we've seen him, O'Hearn does hit the ball. When he hits it on the ground, it goes to the right side, but he's had a lot of opposite field hits, and they have all been in the air, including that one that went over the fence to left center field last week. He's a big guy at 6'3", 210.
Got a chance to see Ryan last year for the first time and was impressed with him then. And just looking at the way this organization has had the luxury of allowing players to develop on a timetable and not have to rush them through the system, allow them to make those jumps, spend a half season in one level, finish out the year in the next, and then start them at that particular level the following year. Let them get their at-bats and progress. And that's what the signing of Lucas Duda does. It allows guys like Ryan O'Hearn, Hunter Dozier to work on their game at that particular position.
O'Hearn takes off the plate, so a poor beginning the 8th inning by T.J. McFarland, and looks like they'll make a pitching change. They wanted to see McFarland. They wanted to see Jared Miller. They were able to take a look at Matt Cook. And we'll take a break and tell you who the new pitcher is when we come back. Royals are on Fox Sports Kansas City tomorrow afternoon as they take on the Cleveland Indians from Surprise, Arizona. Coverage begins at 3 o'clock Central Time. Of course, we remind our fans to move their clocks ahead, spring ahead, fall back. And you'll be working with Joel Goldberg, one of our dearest friends.
Yeah, Joel, normally my pre and post game partner, but we got to do the game live tomorrow.
The new pitcher will be Joey Crable. He hails from Seminole, Florida. Went to the same high school as David Eckstein and Tim Raines. So good baseball program there. And he shows good fastball. And this is the guy, a very interesting story, because he averaged almost 11 strikeouts per 9 innings in his minor league career. So they want to take a long look at Crable.
You know, Crable's a guy looking to find a major league roster for the first time, but he's got great stuff. Just the inability to command it consistently is what they're looking for him to improve upon.
Last year, 76 strikeouts in 56 2/3 innings. He kind of has a little herky-jerky delivery, some deception in it. Royals have 2 on with nobody out, and Hunter Dozier the batter. 1 ball, 1 strike. The inning started with a double by DeWeese, a walk to O'Hearn. Hit high in the air, deep right center field, and making the catch right at the warning track. Both runners will tag and advance as Hazelbaker was able to make the catch. But running towards the wall, gave plenty of time for DeWeese and O'Hearn both to tag and advance.
Yeah, Dozier gave that ball quite a ride. Didn't get it out of the ballpark, but hit it extremely well. I'm really hopeful that Hunter Dozier is able to have a nice bounce back season health-wise after being on the disabled list a big part of last year.
So now we'll see Samir Dueñez. Yeah, Hunter hurt so often with the hamate bone last year and the oblique injury. Royals would really like to have him a solid year, completely healthy, and that's one of the reasons they went out and acquired Lucas Duda to give him time to develop at that first base position. If they choose to play him there, he can play both corners on the infield, both corners in the outfield. And for Dueñez, he is a first baseman. Played at Double-A last year. Power is up, batting average down a bit. Checks his swing on a strike, and a 1-1 count. We're in the top of the 8th inning. Diamondbacks lead by 4. And he is pounding it inside the defensive infield position. They are playing Dueñez with a severe pull. You see 3 infielders in the right side. 1 lone man on the left is Reinheimer. And again they pound him inside and get that fastball at 93 across for a strike 3.
If it's just in the 7 pitches we've seen from Joey Crable, we can tell exactly why the Diamondbacks want to take a look at him with that fastball. He's got good life on the fastball, low to mid 90s, but has good finish, good life, and I think that's something that very difficult to teach Dad. If he can work on his off pitches, he's got a chance.
And now he has to face another left-hander in Cody Ashe. Strike 1. He is pounding that zone. As she with good power. Barely missed there. Advantage Crable. Joey was the Angels' 12th round pick in 2011 and then sent to Arizona in the Joe Hatcher, Tony Campana deal. Two and two. Continues to come inside of the left-handed batters with that fastball in the low 90s. Barely missed again. And he's gone from the advantage to now a full count at 3-2. Now Cody is on. The tying run will come to the plate.
Nice job of discipline at the plate by Ashe. Crable had the advantage, worked it back, and works the walk.
The Royals do have depth at that middle infield spot. They have a lot of young shortstops with plenty of talent, including Eric Mejia, Ramon Torres, Nicky Lopez, and Jack Lopez, Humberto Arteaga. And there's a check swing. They say he went, so Jack is down in the count. 0-1. And I think the Royal scouts have that philosophy. Shortstops are usually the best athletes, and if you draft one and he may not work out at short, you can move him around, and he can play second base, the outfield.
How about Hunter Dozier, maybe first base at some point?
And he was a college shortstop, but a big one at 6'4". The Royals immediately moved him to third base. And as we talked about earlier, he could play both corners and both corners in the outfield as well. That versatility, so important. The 1-1 foul back. Advantage Crable at 1-2. Check swing on a breaker low, and the count now evens 2-2.
We get a situation where we see a fastball here for Lopez. No, Crable does not want to go full count again with bases loaded.
In there. Surprise Jack Lopez with a fastball right down the middle at 93 miles an hour. The Royals leave the bases loaded. We head to the bottom of the 8th inning. Arizona by 4. It's on 50 seasons of Royals baseball with the 50th season celebration pack. This package is loaded with gate giveaways, alumni appearances, and special celebrations at the K all season long. Visit Royals.com/celebrate for details. Playing on the berms in the outfield, and here is Josh Stallman, a guy with bad numbers last year, but he has tremendous stuff. And in his last outing, we saw him in spring training on Wednesday, and boy, he looked free and easy in a scoreless inning.
I had a chance to see Josh pitch 2 years ago in minor league spring training camp. I was down part of the Royals alumni guest instructor program, and he was the one arm that stood out to me. And I had a chance to see him pitch from the cloverleaf up in the minor league complex, and it was obvious that he was a standout guy stuff-wise. And I started asking some of the kids around, the minor league players, who's this kid? And he said, well, they drafted him, and he walked like 100 batters and had all kinds of difficulties. And then they kind of refined his mechanics a little bit and kind of got things back in the right direction. He got on the radar screen. I was really surprised to see his numbers, almost like he digressed some last year, but he's got great stuff, great upside.
Well, there's an example right there. A fastball at 96 miles an hour, kept it down, and obviously the hitter couldn't do much with it. Jack Reinheimer is the batter. But the first time out this spring, he did look a little stiff, and then the last time we saw him on Wednesday, free and easy. I'm sure Cal Eldred talking with him. Cal's all about confidence. Good curveball, but hit in a perfect spot. Stallman has no chance. I mean, he might not only have the best fastball of our minor leagues, but also the best breaking ball. That was an excellent curveball.
Yeah, this curveball, you see it almost like it rolls off the table, and that's what you want. You want the downward movement. The good curveballs really don't curve. They more roll off or drop off the table, and Stallman has an outstanding one and to go along with that fastball. So that's, again, why I was really surprised to see the digression with regards to his numbers last year.
Now Gally Cribbs. He'll be tough to double. He has good speed, batting from the left side of the plate. And that one was foul off, looked like Nick Denny, the catcher, and he a little painful. But as you take a look at that bullpen, I would imagine right now, Monty, there are three guys that are for sure in there: Herrera, Mauer. I'm not sure Willie Peralta, if Willie's going to be a starter or a reliever, but likely right now in the bullpen. But he is a for sure. But after that, it is a mix of guys, and one left-hander is going to have to stand out.
Yeah, you'd like to have as many lefties as possible, and the Royals have been in a situation for a couple of years where they've had almost too many lefties. But with the departure of guys like Scott Alexander, I mean, you're looking for guys to step forward and be those consistent performers. And Ned Yost wants to go with the best guys out there, but you'd like to have a lefty or two in that mix, especially a dominant lefty against some of those big power left-handed bats.
Right now, guys like Brian Flynn, Tim Hill is an interesting story, a submariner from the left side. Ooh, off the close play.
Very nice move to first, and that's all about the feet. It's all footwork.
Yeah, maybe the best right-handed move in the game. Justin Verlander has great feet, always on the bag.
And those are little things that pitchers can do. You don't have to have anybody to work with. You can do that in the offseason, find ways to get better. And just part of the the rounding out of a pitcher to get to this level, to be able to maintain the running game, control the running game, and Josh Stallman obviously has done that.
So you have a chance to run around in that berm in the outfield, and it was completely full, but the rains came and people started scattering looking for cover. Rain has stopped, but it's still moist on that berm. And Stallman with the fastball low. But also in that bullpen mix, Kevin McCarthy, Miguel Almonte, Andres Machado, Birch Smith, Brian Flynn, Eric Skoglund, Brad Keller, Tim Hill.
Yeah, and you've mentioned a lot of pitchers who we've seen glimpses of. We've not seen maybe a lot of some of those names, but we've seen glimpses, and we know why they're on the radar screen. We know why they're in spring training camp, and now it's the opportunity to evolve and be a guy that can go out and be a consistent performer day in, day out, and really elevate your game to the next level and be part of a big league bullpen.
And you really want to make that decision awfully easily for management by dominating at the minor league level. And there is a walk, so Josh a little wild here after giving up the infield hit. And he's gotten his fastball up a little bit to the second batter. Now he'll face Christian Walker. You said one time the line between real good and being real bad at this level is nearly invisible. Can you explain that?
Well, it's nearly invisible, but on the other hand, it's almost like trying to jump across a Grand Canyon.
And there is a drive to center field that is over the head of Billy Burns that will score 2 runs, and then a double by Walker. It makes it 9-3 Arizona.
Yeah, Fizz, my comment about it, it's just very difficult to determine sometimes as we see the hanging breaking ball finishes in the middle of the plate, get tattered out to the 410 sign. But it's difficult because you feel like you're on your game. You feel like everything's there and everything's clicking physically, mechanically, and for some reason you just can't determine that it's not there. The hitters will let you know. I've always said the hitters are the best barometer for a pitcher on whether you have it or you don't have it. But sometimes as a pitcher, you're out there, you feel great. You feel like everything's clicking, everything's working, but you get out in the game and it just doesn't happen. And that's when I say it's like trying to jump across a Grand Canyon, because you can't find a way to get there.
Fastball barely low. And that's why some of the Hall of Fame pitchers that we know, particularly talking about starting pitchers, where those games that they don't have it and they may give up 3-4 runs in the first 2 innings, all of a sudden they somehow, whether through its determination or intestinal fortitude, they're still out there in the 6th or 7th inning, and it might be a 5-5 game, and they've somehow kept their team in it.
Yeah, and they just have a knack for understanding what it takes to get things back on track. And as opposed to like a young pitcher here like Josh DeMont, you're out there scrambling when you're a Josh DeMont trying to figure out what's going on. The veteran pitchers, like you mentioned, and you can come up with a dozen different names of guys who have done that over the years, but they just find a way to kind of slow the game down. They find a way to get back in their game, and your next thing you know, they're giving the team a chance to battle back. And so many of those pitchers, if you don't get them in the first inning or two, you don't get them at all, because once they get settled in, they become really good.
When you were young in your career, was it like guys like Saberhagen and Mark Gubicza who taught you that?
The best one I've seen is Brett Saberhagen.
Really?
Just because of, if you get Sabes early, you got a chance, but he's going to find a way to get it going. If you don't get him early, you're not going to get him late, because he has a sense of kind of smelling that finish line, understanding what it takes to get that ball. And I can remember both him and Mark Gubicza pitching deep into or finishing games because they had that knack and that ability to sniff that finish line and sniff that 9th inning and get that last out, that 27th out of the game. And I'll never forget Sabes' no-hitter, I think it was in maybe 91 against the White Sox. He was throwing better in the 9th inning than he was in the first 2 or 3 innings. But once you get past the first few innings with Sabes and he turns it up a notch, he dials it up, you're not going to get him.
And George, as an offensive talent, was much the same way. I mean, that 1980 season was absolutely remarkable, but even as a fan watching it growing up in Kansas City, going, in August he hit almost 500 that year, and even the outs were line drives. It was like he was swinging at a beach ball. And there's a line drive to left field, and that's a base hit that will score the 10th run. So Socrates Brito comes through. And now Cesar Puello will be the batter.
Well, unfortunately for Josh Damon, I don't see anybody warming up, so he's going to have to find a way to get him a ground ball, get out of this inning. And sometimes, again, these are great learning experiences. You don't like what you're living through, but it's good for you as far as your development.
Didn't have the same break as some of his earlier curveballs.
Yeah, that looked almost more like a cutter or a slider than an over-the-top breaking ball.
Now he's really fighting it himself, it seems like. Threw a great curveball and got Reinheimer to top it and pull it to the left side for an infield hit. Nothing's gone right since. You know, we were talking about the left-handers, Brian Flynn, Tim Hill in that mix. Richard Lovelady, a double-A pitcher they really like. But another guy who was a starter for us, we all remember his great performance against in a duel with Justin Verlander. Eric Skoglund looks very good this spring.
Yeah, I had a chance to watch him pitch a few nights back and was very impressed with his usage of the fastball. He's a guy that has a good fastball. He can pitch off his fastball. He's got a nice curveball and changeup to go along with it. And those are pitches that will come along. Those are pitches that he will hopefully develop and become even more refined pitches for him. But I just go back to that game you were referring to when he outdueled Justin Verlander. He was dominant with his fastball against some of the best hitters in the game, and just the confidence to go out and demonstrate that. And I think as a player, you're trying to prove yourself, for one, that you belong in the big leagues. And when you do it at that stage against the Verlander, it does so much for you. You've proven to yourself. Unfortunately, his subsequent outings were not as good. I mean, I think his next outing was against the Cleveland Indians, and maybe didn't get out of the second or third inning. So it's just complete night and day opposite of what we saw. But just watching him now, that learning experience he had last year, understanding what it takes to be successful at this level, and then working on it and knowing how to slow the game down when he needs to, knowing how to get out of situations and jams, that will go a long way for him.
Staumont misses low and walks the batter. Now they're going to leave the kid out there. But the one thing I noticed when I saw Eric this spring was he's a bigger kid. You could tell that he was spent some time in the offseason in that weight room. He also said he was working on his changeup, and last year he said one of the guys that he learned the most from was Jason Vargas, and Jason taught him he basically showed him how he threw his changeup, which is one of the best left-hander in the league.
Well, the thing about Jason Vargas, and if you're learning from somebody who has that ability with that particular pitch, Vargas had the ability to throw that pitch to righties and lefties, inside and outside, which is very unusual. And again, it's just a factor of having the confidence and belief that you can, execute that pitch on a frequent basis, regardless of which side of the plate the guy's standing on and where you're trying to get the finish on.
Ramon Flores, the batter. Ground ball left side. They do get one. And I wanted to make sure the call was made by the second base umpire. And when he finally raised the right arm, because it was awfully close, and quite frankly, I thought the runner may have been safe.
Not sure how much the rain has a impact on the ability to stand up, but at least you get the lead runner.
Yeah, good call. So Josh Tolley up for the second time, grounded out back in inning number 7. Yeah, I probably should have put Trevor Oakes and Scott Barlow and Sam Gaviglio and others in that mix, but they might be looked at in a starting role. We'll see. Royals were able to sign Ricky Nolasco this week, and that came after losing Jesse Hahn.
You hated to see Hahn go down. He's got that elbow issue. Not sure how significant the injury is, but he was a guy that was likely going to compete for a slot in that rotation.
Or I thought could be very valuable, and I mean as a late inning reliever. He could be a good setup guy. He was hitting 95, 96 early in camp. Good movement. And I've always felt if you can bring a guy out of the bullpen that's a strike thrower that they haven't seen, and they're seeing for just one time, with that kind of velocity, that kind of movement, you just hope he is healthy. A one hopper to third. The 8th inning is over for Josh Staumont.
We've been going to Menards a lot.
Back to Missouri schools, so play it forward with the Missouri Lottery. And by Shelter Insurance for your auto, home, and life. We're your shield. We're your shelter. Bird on a wire. Diamondbacks with a 7-run lead on Kansas City. We head to the top of the 9th inning of play. And Jake Buchanan comes out of the bullpen, a right-hander out of Charlotte, North Carolina. He was Houston's 8th-round pick in 2010. Out of North Carolina State, moved on to the Chicago Cubs, the Reds, and now Arizona. He will face Nick Dini. First pitch by Buchanan is low ball 1. Jake made his major league debut in June of 2014, and he was on the World Championship Cubs team in 2016, but he only pitched in 2 games that year. One of them. He did not pitch in the postseason, but throws a strike, and now a 2-1 count. Nick Dini. Royals catching spot rather deep. We talked about not only the Salvador Perez and Drew Butera at the major league level, but Cam Gallagher and Chase Below, Mabris Valoria at the minor league level. The ball cracked pretty well to the right side, but reaching up and pulling it down is Hazelbaker. We're out number 1.
The ball is very well struck. I think there's a chance the ball's going to get over his head.
Yeah, he had to reach up right at the very end. But I was reading where Jake Buchanan, he had an interesting story. His wife Chelsea is a reporter. I'm a little surprised she didn't get in trouble with this, but Jake snuck into the national championship game, college football game between Florida State and Auburn a few years back. He passed himself off as his wife's cameraman, even though he was not carrying a camera. And he somehow got into the game. That's a loving couple. Billy Burns with the line drive. Jake not fooling anybody, but they're hitting it at the right spot. And 2 lineouts, and the Royals down to their final out here in the 9th. Now Ramon Torres. I haven't seen so many shifts in a spring training game for so many young players, and like Arizona has shown today.
It's an amazing trend in the game the last 3 or 4 years that we've seen with the information available and with all the StatCast numbers.
They had information on Samir Dueñas, and they pulled 3 infielders over the right side. Now they're doing the same for Ramon Torres, who I think this spring has shown a good ability from the left side of the plate to go to the opposite field. Strike in there. Well, he does take a shot at the opposite field, but flips it out of play. That's why back in the day it was so beautiful to watch guys like Rod Carew or Tony Gwynn. They'd take a look at the infield, see where they were defending, and just fire it right by an open spot. It was a chopper, but right back to the mound, and Buchanan will throw out Torres, and that will do it for Kansas City. The Royals right now at 500 on this young spring training campaign. They lose today 10-3, and their record is 7-1. And we'll be right back.